you think that the Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson injuries affect Jonathan Taylor? And does your opinion change based off of the scoring format? We've got that and much, much more coming to you on tonight's episode of the Mailbag Show at Football Guys. This is a great question to start off with. It seems like this is what everybody's talking about on Twitter. We've got two huge injuries to somebody that the fantasy football community has fallen in love with. And Troy, I'll throw this question to you first. Carson Wentz is injured. Quentin Nelson is injured. They both have that same 5 to 12 week timetable for a return. Does this affect Jonathan Taylor in your ranking?
Yes, it does affect Jonathan Taylor in my rankings. I believe prior to this Quentin Nelson injury, I had him at about, I would say running back 6 or 7, and now I have him at running back 11 because you have to factor it in, right? So to me, obviously not having your starting quarterback and not having your best offensive lineman, I don't care how good you are as a running back, it's going to affect you. So to me, I believe that this is actually a bonus for Nyheim Hines because I believe they're going to be trailing more and obviously, and they're going to be stacking the box against Jonathan Taylor, right? So I think Nyheim Hines is going to be the one that benefits most because they're going to be in passing situations more because of this. I believe they have, the offensive line is still fine, but obviously it's not elite without Quentin Nelson. And with the reports I've been hearing about Jacob Eason, they might be in trouble. So we'll see.
Yeah, those Eason reports are kind of hilarious. What was it yesterday? They're like, well, he didn't make any huge mistakes. Like he didn't throw an interception. He went 10 for 22 on dump. So, I mean, better practice. But Victoria, same question to you. Does this affect Jonathan Taylor for you in your rankings?
Absolutely. Even just the Wentz news, I was thinking I'd knock him down a little because obviously, Carson Wentz, he's not been touted all season as some all-star guy that's going to take the Colts to the promised land or anything. But if you put a guy like Eason behind at the helm, I think the defenses are going to not think it's as much of a threat, obviously. And they'll likely stack the box now. I think I agree with Troy in turn that it hurts Taylor with more use of Nyheim Hines out of the backfield as a pass catcher, just like we saw last season. I don't think they'll regress to a horrible team or one of the worst in the league or their division, but JT in general, I was the same with Troy. I think I had him at 7. Now I have him at 10, and I'm honestly thinking of knocking him down to 11 or 12. I found some fun stats today while perusing Twitter. So from Frank Amaranti, he said, Taylor faces 4 top 6 rushing defenses in his first 7 games, right? So strength of schedule, basing it off last year's defenses, doesn't always work out, but that's a little scary. If you start in your first 7 games, you don't have a hot start with your RB1, that could really shake up your season and make you be nervous about not getting to your playoffs. Another from Field Yates today. I loved having Quentin Nelson in the picture on about 70 rushes to his left last year. JT averaged 4.1 yards per carry before contact. That was 4th best in the league. So obviously Nelson was on the left. To his right, about 60 rushes. He averaged only 2.1 yards per carry. That was good for 37th overall.
Wow.
That's a big difference.
That was a wild stat to see. So that's why I'm like, maybe I'm going to knock JT down even further. I don't think he deserves a first round draft capital anymore, but he's a talented dude. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
And that's kind of what everybody's wondering now is he still worth that first round pick? I did move him in my rankings a little bit. I mean, this is just terrible news. Losing Carson Wentz is bad enough. That's actually when I did 2-point stance. We had Chris Allen on just 2 days ago, and that's what we opened the show with is how much does it affect him without having Carson Wentz there? And then right after the show aired, then Quentin Nelson goes down too. And realistically, I think that Quentin Nelson injury is even bigger than the Carson Wentz injury was. That being said, when you look at the timetable for a return, I mean, highly unlikely, but it's possible that these guys are both still back for week 1, and people are kind of completely ignoring that. We're still 5 weeks away from the season, and there's a 5 to 12 week timetable for return. So if everything goes perfectly, these guys could still be back. So realistically, they're going to be missing some of these guys probably for the first few weeks, but it's not this death sentence. It's not like, Quentin Nelson is out for the entire season and you should just completely fade Jonathan Taylor. So I'm with you. I mean, this is detrimental. When Quentin Nelson isn't playing, this team will not be the same. When Carson Wentz isn't playing, this team won't be the same. But I think people that are like suddenly saying, he's not even worth a first or second round pick, I think that's a little bit of an overreaction. I had him as running back 9 originally in PPR, and this bumped him down a little bit to running back 12. But really, you're hoping that he could still provide some sort of a decent floor. And then, hopefully the team is back to 100% by playoffs when you really need him. And then hopefully he can kind of do what he did last season and have that really strong second half of the year for you. So I think that people that are really pushing him way, way down their rankings, I think anything more than a full round of a value drop is a little bit of an overreaction. Anyway, want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Football Guys Mailbag Show. Want to remind you that you can send all of your questions to mailbag@footballguys.com, which you can see on the right side of our screen. Troy, Victoria, and I will get to all those every single week. We open up the show by going through all of these submitted questions, and then at the end of the show, we will answer any questions in the chat. So start dropping those questions in there, and we will get to them at the end of the show. We promise to save some more time for that than we did last week. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/footballguystv to see this and all the rest of our shows. And then wanted to let you know that if you are a high-stakes fantasy football player, you have a chance to win $500,000 by playing in the Football Guys Players Championship. Entry to get in is $350, or you can buy a 3-pack for $1,000 and save a little bit of money. Not only is there a $500,000 grand prize, but they're giving out a total of $3.7 million. So find the league on FFPC and draft your team as soon as possible. We've got a lot of questions to get into, so let's dive right in. The next question, Victoria, we'll start with you on this one. We've got Michael Lindsay asking us, with camp injuries piling up, especially with quarterbacks, which quarterback injury concerns you the most?
Well, obviously outside of Wentz, today's reports from Cincinnati were a little scary. I was throwing out some tweets. Not a lot of people that are Joe Burrow truthers, they're not liking the news. There's a quote from a recent article from The Athletic by Paul Dennett. This is part of the quote. He says, "It's just not good right now. Throws that felt like layups last year are dropping harmlessly away from receivers or easily broken up by multiple defenders. There might be a multitude of reasons for the struggles, but this has been ugly. At one point, pressure pushed into his face, and Burrow lifted his leg into the air almost to avoid any accident with close pocket, and that continues." So it sounds like this is still a mental game, obviously, for Burrow, which that makes sense. But football is a physical and a very mental game. So I'm personally not discounting this information. And I tweeted back in June, I was afraid he wasn't going to be at 100%. I tweeted today, he tore all the CLs and his mama's CLs. Like, how do we expect this man to come back 8 months later? And he's just like, "What's up? I'm the same." So I'm very worried about Burrow, but I never had him ranked higher than QB 16. I don't think, because I was worried about this. So
yeah, and he's a guy who was progressing last year, looked great. A lot of people kind of had him in that low end QB1, but now these reports coming out of camp are certainly scary. So I'm with you on that. Troy, who is the quarterback injury that you are most concerned about so far? It's crazy that we're a week into camp and we're already talking about which quarterback injury scares you the most. It has been a bloodbath this week. Let us hear it, Troy.
I have to go with Joe Burrow. I'll say honorable mention to Matt Stafford. He's been dealing with the thumb, but it has to be Joe Burrow, because I read the same report that Victoria did, and obviously, you're a little bit nervous. I currently have him ranked at about QB 13 because I believe that, when the season starts, I'm hoping that, he's going to be good to go. And the way I have it right now is like, it's a season ranking just because obviously we're in the off season. So I believe that offense has so much potential. So I still have confidence in him. Yes, that report is not very promising. So I'm hoping that, he finds his confidence and gets more comfortable as the weeks go on. But it's hard not to be a little bit concerned about Joe Burrow and all the pieces around him as of right now.
So I'm certainly worried about Burrow, but the one that really is kind of jumping out to me, and it's flying a little bit under the radar, is the Dak Prescott injury where he hurt his shoulder. And, he's already coming off this brutal, I don't even know if it was his foot or his ankle or his lower leg. I mean, we just saw everything get destroyed down there last year. And I thought he was going to have a pretty tough road to recovery just from that alone. But now that he's got an additional thing that is, they're having him sit out throwing for the rest of the year, that just worries me because now he's balancing two injuries. And the other reason that I'm most concerned about that is because out of all the guys that have been hurt, Stafford, Burrow, those guys were both kind of low-end QB1, high-end QB2. Wentz realistically probably wasn't on the radar for too many fantasy players, but Dak Prescott is a very elite option. And not only is he an elite option, but he makes everybody else on the team better. So if something does happen to Dak, and this is a long-term thing, we saw what happened to Zeke last year. We saw all the other pass catchers completely fall off. So right now they've got the trio of the 3 guys that are getting drafted higher than any other 3 wide receivers on any team. Those are going to drop dramatically. That Blake Jarwin sleeper that everybody's getting excited about, that's not going to happen anymore. Ezekiel Elliott going top 5, that's not happening anymore. So the ripple effects that could happen if Dak is to miss time, I think that's the one to keep the closest eye on. When he's back throwing next week, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that and making sure that he's at 100%. So we got another question here from Michael Stoyanov, and Troy, will start with you. What injuries and injury history do you give more weight to in regard to early camp incidents? Now, what do you use as an example? It was a bit of a longer question, but he said, for instance, if you've got a guy that has a history of a certain injury and that tweaks again, Will Fuller, for instance, history of hamstring injuries. Do you weigh injury history a little bit when you're looking at these injury reports?
A little bit. I'll say a little bit, right? And then one thing I'm going to start off by saying is that I don't like injury prone because, I've heard a lot of my friends who are medical experts or have, been in the medical field in the industry, they don't use it. So I don't use it. But people like, AJ Green, for example, right? He dealt with his share of injuries, but Will Fuller is like the perfect example, right? He's dealt with the hamstring injuries and we know that's his history. I believe the injury now, he's dealt with an injury now. I don't believe it's a hamstring. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm in a scenario where I feel like it's hard to just completely discount it, right? If someone keeps having or struggling with the same injury over and over again, you can't, I feel like, just ignore it. But at the same time, it's early in training camp. All we can do right now is follow the reports and just see how it goes. And obviously, if they're progressing, awesome. If they seem like they're regressing and not getting any better, then it's time to worry. And then maybe, in redraft, when drafts come, you might pivot to a healthier option versus the guy that has been dealing with injuries or has been struggling with injuries during this offseason.
I like it. What do you think, Victoria? How do you kind of weigh injury history and injury reports this time of year?
I'm similar to Troy. I think in that question it was mentioned anyone with a history of hamstring issues. So those are very annoying, right? We've seen players that have hamstring issues in camp or in the season, and it lingers throughout the entire season, and they're in and out, exactly like Will Fuller, like we talked about. So we saw Galladay. We think he tweaked his hammy. We're not sure. I don't think I saw an updated report. Just people saw him grab his leg in practice. And that scares any normal fantasy player because you're thinking back to, last year you had PTSD. What's going to happen with Galladay? I don't think we should discount right away, right? Don't overreact to any camp news, good or bad. Don't overreact like crazy, but we have to keep in the know and monitor it. So.
And then we got Matthew Bingham in the chat brings up a great point. Jason Moore with the Fantasy Footballer says, don't buy the injury dip in camp, especially when it's a leg with a running back or a wide receiver. Those things do tend to linger, and that's true. What I was going to say, though, is, when it comes to the older guys that have known issues, that's what worries me. Stafford, he's not a young buck anymore, and that thumb gave him a lot of problems last year, and that thumb is giving him problems now. So that's something that does cause me to raise my eyebrows a little bit. We know that Tom Brady just had knee surgery. So if they came out with a report that Tom Brady's knee was bothering him, that would worry me a lot. If Ben Roethlisberger's elbow was bothering him, that's something that would worry me. So that's kind of what I pay attention to, is when people have had surgery to fix something. If that's a lingering problem, then it's something that really, really causes me to get a little bit concerned. But, Victoria here, she talked about the Kenny Galladay one. And that's one that really jumps out to me as well, because we know that he had leg problems last year, and I think it was his hip more than anything. But, just anything that's bothering him from the waist down is going to scare me a little bit this time of year. So, this has been a rough week of camp. But I think guys that have shown a lot of injuries in the past, if they're, pulling up a little limp this time of year, it's definitely something to pay a little bit more attention to than somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, who doesn't miss games. If he hurts himself, that he's going to bounce back and be just fine. So we got Corey Spela asking us a question here. And for those of you that aren't aware, I'm a little bit higher than Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs than the consensus is. So I think that he's trying to, clown me a little bit here with this question. But I'll ask you guys, I think we got a, three-way stamp of approval on this. But who's going to have the better season, Joe Mixon or Josh Jacobs? Victoria, start us off.
Oh, my goodness. Even with all my Mixon, I don't want to say hatred. That's a horrible word. Dislike and distaste. And this question surely becomes interesting with the Burrow talk, but I still cannot see myself ever saying that Jacobs is going to have a better season. Even if Burrow's mobility is limited, et cetera, the Raiders completely dismantled their entire offensive line for reasons no one knows. We're still debating it. It might go down in the history books as unknown. Why did they do that? Not a clue. Jacobs also he does not perform when the Raiders are losing. When they're losing, they take him off the field. We all yell at our television. We're like, why is he not in on third downs and catching passes? It's a mess. Of course, Mixon will likely have the better season here.
Troy?
I'm hit with that stamp of approval. It gotta be Joe Mixon, man. Look, I've said multiple times on this show my concerns about Josh Jacobs. Is he a value at his ADP? Probably. But just like Vic said, the offensive line is worse. You bring in someone like Kenya Drake, who's going to take away not only carries but receptions, and he already wasn't getting any receptions in the first place. So now he's going to get even less or maybe the same, which isn't anything to brag about. Joe Mixon, on the other hand, his offense is looking up. And I've been told by a lot of people on Twitter that the Bengals' offensive line is improved. I don't think they're great, but apparently they're much improved from last year. Then you're hoping to get a healthy Joe Burrow. The offense is supposed to be more explosive. And the anticipation is that he should be getting more targets. Now, every year we say that Joe Mixon will be getting more targets. I actually believe it this time. So I'm going to say Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I think had this question been asked a couple months ago before Gio Bernard was cut and before Kenyon Drake was signed, it would have been a really good question. But right now, Josh Jacobs is in a timeshare. He's not going to have any sort of passing down work. With Gio Bernard out of Cincinnati, wheels up for Joe Mixon. I think that this is going to be, we hear it every single year. I know, but without Gio Bernard there, like this has to be the year that Joe Mixon finally breaks out. He was already on pace for the most targets of his career last year. He saw a weekly uptick in targets all but 1 week last year when he played. So I'm going to go with Joe Mixon on this one. So we got a keeper question, and these are always fun, especially when you see like some of the crazy values that people have. If you guys were playing a while back, there was that year where Kamara, his rookie year, he was getting drafted in like the 12th, 13th, 14th round, and then people got to hold on to that for years. And there's some situations like that now. But Victoria, we'll start with you on this one. James Peterson is asking, he's got a keeper, and he's not sure who he wants. Jonathan Taylor in the 3rd round. He said that was his obvious choice before all the news this week, but he's also got DeAndre Swift in the 6th, J.K. Dobbins in the 6th, Keenan Allen in the 4th, T. Higgins in the 16th, or Myles Gaskin in the 16th. Who are you going with here, Victoria?
I hated this question. It's very difficult, and I feel like we'll all say something different likely. I think I try to take the approach of JT is still a talented guy. The 3rd round is still pretty late for him. I think that, James, if you don't want to be risky and go with your gut instead, I'd likely go with Swift in the 6th. Higgins in the 16th, though, is just mind-blowing. So that I was between those two, only because I do love me some gas man this year, Myles Gaskin, but there are better values in these choices, I think. So again, if you don't want to go JT with the risk, go with your gut, I'd likely go Swift here in the 6th round is a great value for Swift this year.
It is. Troy, who are you going with?
Victoria must have been cheating off my notes, right?
What?
I was struggling with DeAndre Swift or T. Higgins in this exact scenario. So for me, I'm gonna go with T. Higgins. I'm gonna go with T. Higgins because the 16th round is just I wouldn't say disrespectful, right? In terms of the other quality of wide receivers that you're getting there is nothing compared to T. Higgins, right? In the 6th round, you can still get a decent running back if you wanted to. Like, obviously, it's not going to be Swift caliber, but to me, you can find a way to make up that value. But T. Higgins, yes, I know Chase is still in town, but I don't believe that T. Higgins just fades away into the wind. So to me, that value is just way too juicy. Give me T. Higgins.
Man, I wish we could help James out here and give him a little bit more, because I'm going to go in the opposite direction. For me, when I see Myles Gaskin in the 16th, that almost like reminds me of like James Robinson last year, where you're getting a workhorse running back with almost no draft capital at all. And I get it. I like T. Higgins, but I feel like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, they're going to cannibalize each other just a little bit. They both want to take on that alpha role, and it worries me with how high their ADP is right now that one of those guys is going to end up being the odd man out. But getting Myles Gaskin in the 16th round, I mean, that's just unbelievable. It's not every day that you can get a value like that. So, DeAndre Swift is probably going to outperform Myles Gaskin, and Jonathan Taylor is probably going to outperform Myles Gaskin. But if that's all you got to give up is a 16th pick for a guy that's probably going to see 250 touches this year, I love that. So I'd be going Gaskin all day. Got Colin Smith asking us a question here. In Dynasty, how do we feel about the 2021 101 for Derrick Henry and a 2022 first? So Colin here would be getting the 101. I like this. Everybody's so prone to like doing their rookie drafts early in the offseason. I kind of like the idea of waiting until after camp to do that rookie pick. So Troy, start us off here. What are you doing? Are you doing the 101 for Henry and next year's first?
So I'm guessing we're assuming it's a 1 QB league.
Probably.
I'll say if it's a 1 QB league, I want the Henry side. So give me the Henry side if this is a particular case. So yeah, I want the Henry side in this scenario.
What about you, Victoria? Who are you taking here?
I might agree with Troy. I'm not in the camp of like sell Derrick Henry this year. Though there are some really good arguments to Tennessee's offense potentially falling off. They lost their offensive coordinator. If one of their pieces gets hurt, things can fall apart. I don't know. I still think Tannehill will be efficient. I think they'll still be able to use Henry on the ground as much as possible. Of course, the offense flows through him. So there's a first there. What's better? I guess what would be better this year for the 101, right? If you're desperate for a quarterback and you want to grab Trevor Lawrence and hope for the best, I'm not sure. I think I'm with the Henry side too. There's just more. You know what Henry is.
Yeah. And I think whether it's a super flex or a regular, like let's say it's a super flex, you're getting Trevor Lawrence. Let's say it's a 1 QB league, you're getting Najee Harris. Are you trading Najee Harris and next year's first? Or, I'm sorry, are you trading Najee Harris for Derrick Henry in a first? No. So I think the Henry side is so much better. And I'm somebody who's a little bit lower than Henry on than the consensus, but he might have, a year left in the tank. He might have 2, 3, who knows? I mean, this guy has done nothing but defy the odds throughout his career and just keeps seeing more and more volume and more yards every single year that he's been in the league. So, there's a little bit of risk in taking on a guy who's 27 years old. You know what Henry is. You know that he's going to see 300 touches this year if he stays healthy. So I think that's what you got to go with there. Now, first of all, this is a great Twitter name here. We got Stoned Sports Dude asking us about Denver camp battles and the two that he's interested in. I mean, this is a team. We don't know what this team's going to look like, but they're asking. He's asking if it's going to be Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, or Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams at running back. And I mean, we can even talk about who the number 1 wide receiver is going to be on this team. Nobody has any idea what this team is going to look like. But Victoria, start us off. Who do you think is going to come out the QB1 and the RB1 out of Denver?
So we discussed on the Mailbag Show a week or two ago in depth the wide receivers on Denver, and we talked a little bit about Luck and Teddy, right? My worry with the recent reports from a couple days ago is Fangio saying Lock and Teddy, they're on the same level. They're in lockstep. No one has pulled out as the guy. So that worries me because as much as I'm rooting for Lock, how is he? If he's not pulled away in the camp battle by now, I'm very worried. That means they're going to be going with Teddy. Or if they do go with Lock as their starter and stick with him, if he struggles at all, at any point, they're going to throw Teddy in there. And that makes me sad because I was rooting for him. But if he hasn't pulled away yet in camp, it definitely worries me. So I'm going to go with Teddy for the long haul. And we've seen that the Melvin Gordon talk in camp has been good, and nobody wants to hear that. Everybody wants to see the rookie. Let's see Javonte do his thing. Did the rookie kind of put a little pep in Melvin Gordon's step, honey? I'm not sure, but it sounds like it. I still think they have a bye in week 11, I believe. So I still think we could see Javonte take over after that if Melvin slips a little bit or anything. But talk out of camp is good. I don't know. I think we're not going to get what we want this season.
I agree with everything you said. Now I have a few things to add, but Troy, what do you think here? Who's going to be the QB and running back coming out of Denver week 1?
So here's the thing I think about when it comes to Locke and Teddy. So with Locke, I feel like with Teddy, I feel like he needs to be significantly better, in my opinion, than Locke in camp for him to get the starting job. Otherwise, in my opinion, I think it just defaults to Locke, right? He's been the starter. If Teddy doesn't do anything extraordinary, then I think it's Locke's job to lose. So that I believe that Locke is going to be the starter. In terms of the running backs, I've been in the camp pretty much all off season that it's Melvin Gordon's job to he's going to eventually lose it, but I believe that he's going to start off, being the starting running back. I believe that's his job. I think Javonte, there's been a lot of positive camp reports on him as well. I just don't see them going into the season with Javonte as the RB1. I believe he's going to take that job eventually, but Melvin Gordon, I don't think he's fallen off a cliff. Like he hasn't pulled a Todd Gurley, right? He's still a decent running back. The only concern about him is efficiency, but it doesn't matter. He gets when he's in the red zone, when he's on the goal line, he scores touchdowns, and he does the little. Like he's just fine, right? He's not exciting, but Melvin Gordon, he's fine, and he's going to be doing enough to keep that job at least for the majority of the season. I believe Javonte is going to take over, but I think at least for the first, multiple weeks of the season to start, I think it's Melvin Gordon's job.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that as well. And I just updated my running back rankings today, and I had to move Melvin Gordon ahead of Javonte Williams because, you've got to go with what's happening. And right now, all reports are that he looks good. And my initial take was that, people that have watched this show or 2 Point Stands probably get a little confused because I swing back and forth on this one all the time. Initially I thought, Melvin Gordon has to be the starter. Like they're paying him $4.5 million. They're not going to pay him $4.5 million to sit on the bench. And then I started diving into some Javonte Williams tape, and I was like, this guy's really good, and they traded up for him. Maybe he's going to be the guy. But now we hear that, Melvin Gordon is the guy in camp. Everybody seems to be starting to lean that way, and maybe we'll see a change of guard this year. Maybe we'll see it next year. But I think you got to go with what we're hearing right now, which is that Melvin Gordon looks like he's going to be the week 1 starter. Javonte Williams, if you want to buy him on a discount and hope that he takes over at some point, go for it. But Melvin seems to be the guy. And then as for the quarterback situation, I think it's going to be Teddy B. I really like Teddy Bridgewater. He's somebody that, for whatever reason, the NFL has kind of soured on since his injury, but he's been solid ever since he's been in the league, ever since he came back from that injury in Minnesota. So I'm a big fan of Teddy Bridgewater, and I think that he's going to do what he needs to do to hold on to that for the rest of the offseason. This is a fun question right here. We talked about Derrick Henry a little bit ago. But Michael Kaya reached out to us and said that he has the 4th overall pick in his draft. It is a PPR draft, redraft, and he is torn between Ezekiel Elliott and Derrick Henry. Troy, start us off here. Are you going Zeke or are you going Derrick Henry?
Give me Zeke. And it's obviously it's a tough question, but give me Zeke because I think it's really based on the catches, right? I think it's the catches, and I believe that Zeke is going to get volume. Last year, I think people are just a little bit too low. Did Zeke look great? No, he didn't look great. He was also dealing with injuries and dealing with like the worst quarterbacks ever. He had to deal with Ben DiNucci as his starting quarterback for a week, right? And Andy Dalton, he eventually looked competent, but that first game, Andy Dalton was like the worst quarterback in the league. So, well, again, what I'm saying is that he didn't have a lot to work with, right? And then And I know Dave doesn't like these reports about Zeke's in the best shape of his life, but he looked like he's in the best shape of his life.
I saw that picture of him shirtless and flexing. I saw it.
No, he's look shredded.
Yeah,
he looks ready. And you know what? I think that he's gonna. I just love that offense. Look, I know that Derrick Henry's going to the Titans offense runs through Derrick Henry, but we know that the only knock is that he doesn't get targets. Zeke, I at least believe, is going to get more targeted, so that's where it boils down to for me.
What are you thinking, Victoria? Zeke or Henry in a PPR league?
I looked at my rankings, and I have Henry at 4 and Zeke at 5. So I thought about it, and I still think I'm keeping it that way. I still think I would go Henry, even though Zeke has been one of the most consistent running backs in the league for years up until the unfortunate 2020 season. Henry has the capability to give you 35 to 40 points, break off 1 million touchdowns and yards in 1 week. Like he can single-handedly win you a week, and Zeke can do that too. But I feel like in the last couple of years, I've seen Henry do that maybe it's just me when I'm like, oh, really, am I playing against Henry again this week when he's just popping off? I know Zeke could do it too. I think Zeke will give you more consistent production, those 18 to 25 points per week. For Henry, I think I'm taking that ceiling for me.
I get it. There's a very strong argument to be made for both of these. But we heard this report last offseason that Zeke said the biggest thing that he was focusing on was improving as a pass catcher. And it's something that we've seen a little bit throughout his career, but never too much. He had 95 targets back in 2018, and that was the most he ever saw. Last year, very small sample size, but before Dak Prescott got hurt, Zeke was on pace to see 120 targets last year. I mean, he was heavily involved in the pass game. And a lot of the reason for that was what helped propel Dak so much, too, is rather than just turning around and handing the ball off, they were getting him out in open space, throwing the ball, and that was helping Dak equally. So I'm going Zeke here as well. In PPR, I think that Derrick Henry is a little bit more volatile than people realize. You know, he's very touchdown dependent. And if he has games where he's not finding the end zone, which isn't often, he's got a very low floor where in PPR leagues, I like to get those guys that I know are getting catches because even if they can't find the end zone, just getting 3 or 4 catches is going to give them somewhat of a floor. So I'd be leaning Zeke in this situation. We've got another keeper question here, and Victoria, we could start you off with this one. And this is a half PPR. He's got the 7th overall pick, and he's asking, should he keep Jonathan Taylor in the 3rd or Calvin Ridley in the 5th? What do you think?
I love this question. And even if this was before the Wentz news and everything, I still think I would take Ridley in the 5th. I mean, Ridley has wide receiver 1 overall potential, right? We've talked about this all offseason. He's got that guaranteed production in the 5th. That's incredible. You can still, with your 7th overall pick, get a stud running back there. And knowing you already have Calvin Ridley on the other side from your 5th round, but that's my answer, man. I mean, I can't. This is just a non-question for me.
What about you, Troy?
Ridley, even before the news, Ridley in the 5th. That's cheating. That's stealing. Ridley.
All right. I'm not even going to get any more into this because you got the stamp of approval. We are all saying Calvin Ridley in the 5th. That's just a crazy value cheat code. Congratulations on that awesome keeper. We got Patrick Pucci, too, asking us, who will be the waiver wire week 1 quarterback claim? I love this question. It really, really makes you think. Who's the guy that's going to go undrafted in your league that everybody's going to be clamoring to get after week 1? Troy, who do you think?
I'm gonna go with 2 guys. I say either. I mean, what? Nah, Tua. It sounds like a homer pick, but I'll say Tua because because here's the thing, right? So Tua is my QB 20 right now, right? So let's look at everyone else in his range. Those are like, well, Carson Wentz was in there. You got like the Ryan Fitzpatricks, things like that. So, I changed my answer. Ryan Fitzpatrick. I never done this before, so I forgot Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Talk yourself into it. On the show. We all saw the hamster spinning in there.
Yeah, okay, so I changed my mind too. I love you, but I gotta go Ryan Fitzpatrick. So the reason why is because we gotta look at all his weapons, right? Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Gibson. So I believe if he balls out just the first week, and we've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick be Ryan Fitzmagic. So if he has that balls out the first week, I believe a lot of waiver claim. And we see it every year, right? Everyone's going to register the waiver wire to stream Ryan Fitzpatrick after his blow-up game. So I'm going him.
Who are you going with, Victoria?
I had Fitzy in my answer box here. And I was going to say the answer that Dave would love would be Justin Fields after Andy Dalton.
He's getting drafted.
I know. Well, in some like
not in one QB.
He might not in a redraft yet.
All of my home leagues are in Chicago, so he's getting drafted in every single one of my leagues.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I had Fitzmagic on here. I had Winston and Hill and Taysom Hill. I don't know if this is an answer for right now, but obviously, hopefully, we see the quarterback situation get figured out. If we don't, I don't know if Winston doesn't win the job or Hill doesn't. So that was my answer there. I don't know. This is a tough question too. I was looking at the rankings here too. Somebody like Big Ben If
Mhm.
someone
I
is,
almost went with him.
He's a good one.
yeah, Big Ben. I mean, that would probably be. Did someone say Sam Darnold in the comments?
Honestly, Sam Darnold, that was my choice. And somebody
Go
said it in the
for it.
comments, but for
Yeah.
the exact reason that he said it. Week 1, they got the Jets. And, this is Joe Brady. He's a pretty sharp offensive mind, and there are some real weapons on this Carolina team. So everybody's just written Sam Darnold off at this point and just said that he's a trash quarterback. And, really, we've seen this. Like, it's such a cliche thing to say, but we've seen so many people come out from under Adam Gase's shadow and succeed. I mean, we just saw it with Robbie Anderson last year in Carolina. So, I'm not sitting here saying that you should go out and draft Sam Darnold because he's going to be a great quarterback, but I think he might surprise some people. And he's getting undrafted in every single quarterback league this year. Like, nobody is even thinking about drafting Sam Darnold. But if he goes out, throws, 300 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, you better believe people are going to get interested and go pick him up.
300 yards and 4 touchdowns.
DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Tylan Wallace, Terrence Marshall, Christian McCaffrey's back. Like, he doesn't even have to do that much. Think about Christian McCaffrey on his own is going to be getting 70 to 80 receiving yards every single game. So with McCaffrey back there, I mean, and that's so many people are quick to say that, Teddy Bridgewater had these weapons and didn't put up elite numbers, but he didn't have these weapons. He didn't have Christian McCaffrey. He didn't have Terrace Marshall. Those are 2 huge pieces to the offense that are going to be there this year. So again,
you're forgetting Dan Arnold. I don't know why you would disrespect that man.
Come on,
this year's Ian Thomas, right?
Just kidding.
So we got another question on Joe Burrow, and we kind of covered this a little bit, but let's just.
Oh yeah, we did.
Let's skip over this one. Kelly, thanks for being a fan of the show. Love that you tune in.
Love you,
we
Kelly.
talked about Joe Burrow at the very beginning, so you can check it out there. So we got a question here from FF Grinder. Other than Waller, which pass catchers on Las Vegas are you targeting in drafts? Love this question. And Victoria, who are you going with?
The hype on Twitter is Bryan Edwards right now. Let's go, Bryan Edwards. I don't get it. I'm not drafting. No, I'll probably draft him in a couple of leagues, right? You think he'll have that breakout this year. We hope somebody like Henry Ruggs last season was a fluke and they utilize him properly this season. I will probably, though, likely find myself with a lot of John Brown on my teams. I think that he's an old man, right, for the NFL standards. But if he stays away from injuries, he's still got some pep in his step, something left in the tank, and potential for wide receiver 1. So I probably will have mostly John Brown on my rosters.
I like it. And he's an ADP. I mean, he's a guy right now that, like we were saying, some guys are just free in drafts. He's one of those guys that you don't even have to think about until the 14th, 15th, 16th round. So I like that one. What about you, Troy?
Look,
you sipping that Bryan Edwards type?
Look, one, you know I'm not, man.
You sipping that Kool-Aid?
Nah, I'm not sipping that Bryan Edwards Kool-Aid. Like that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he balls out. I saw those talks from John Gruden comparing to Terrell Owens. I'm like, stop, man. Like,
no.
Okay, the guy I want, the wide receiver, give me Ruggs. So give me Ruggs because to me, he has the most upside out of the other wide receivers. And, they drafted him in the first round for a reason, right? They want to feature him in the offense. Last year, obviously, he didn't have a great rookie season. A lot of it had to do with injuries. So to me, if Ruggs is healthy, they want to feature him. They want to get him the ball. They want to take shots down the field. And to me, and I've been trying to get him as much best ball as I can. But even in redraft, he's somebody you should definitely, as a wide receiver 3 or a flex play, he's the type of wide receiver you'd want because he has that big playability. So Ruggs is the guy I would want.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ruggs is my guy. I think that he's got the ability to just score from anywhere on the field, and he's got the upside. And I feel like if you're drafting a guy really, really late, you're not looking for somebody that's going to get consistent targets. You're looking for somebody with upside. I just want to point out, like, this is one of the most John Gruden teams I've ever seen. Like, they don't have a bona fide wide receiver 1, but they just have so many guys. Like, these are all guys that have had fantasy relevance at one point. Let me just read off these wide receivers that are in Las Vegas. You got Henry Ruggs, who's the guy they drafted last year, obviously. Bryan Edwards, another guy that they drafted, but Hunter Renfrow, Zay Jones, Willie Snead, John Brown. Like, he's just getting all of these guys that have been relevant at one point. I mean, you remember when they brought Jordy Nelson in off the street a few years ago. I love Gruden as a personality, but it worries me a little bit when I see some of these signings that they make in Las Vegas.
I forgot about Zay Jones. Shout out Buffalo Bills. Let's go.
Oh, man, Zay Jones, he had a little flash in the pan where I thought he was going to be like the next Terrell Owens. Like, he just had this few week stretch where he looked awesome. Was never really able to put it together over a career, but Zay Jones, man. You know,
all he did was that cool
That
when he
the
got off the
moonwalk
ground.
thing.
Yeah.
no,
Okay, buddy.
Yeah, he had a pretty tough time too, if I remember correctly. He had to take some time off for some mental health issues, but
Yeah.
happy to see him back in the league. Hopefully, he can make the team this year. But anyway, we got one more question to get to. Before we answer this question, be sure to start dropping those questions in the chat because we will close off the last 20 minutes of the show answering those. We got Sam Wagman asking us here at ADP: would you rather have Diontae Johnson or Chase Claypool? For reference, Diontae Johnson is going a few above Chase Claypool. These are two guys that I am very bullish on this year. So I haven't even really thought this answer through because it's a really tough one for me. So you guys do the answer. And Troy, who are you taking? Diontae Johnson or Chase Claypool at ADP?
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, somebody mentioned. So you know what? I know you recently did a Claypool tweet on Twitter. So I think that's probably where you.
Or no, it was Diontae Johnson this morning and Claypool last week.
there we go. So you know what? I'm going Diontae, man. He's clearly the wide receiver one. He was one of the most targeted wide receivers in the league last year. He's Ben's go-to. So give me Diontae Johnson. I don't care if he drops the ball 100 times. If he gets targeted 200 times, it'll balance out. So give me Diontae.
Who are you going with here, Victoria?
Diontae is my honey this year, last year, all the years. Just kidding. Well, I think we talked about him once or twice on the show. I've said this before. In his healthy games last year, weeks 1 through 16, his healthy games, he had 12 targets, 75 yards, and 19 PPR points per game. If you look at those PPR points per game, that would slot him in between Calvin Ridley and Hopkins. Okay, that's just unbelievable. He gets peppered with targets, and the drop passes were an issue, but that's volatile, non-sticky stat. I'm not worried about it. Big Ben, his favorite, Big Daddy Ben, back at the helm, gonna keep targeting that Diontae. So I'm going Diontae.
That's crazy. I didn't look out or pluck out the games that he was injured for, but yeah, I mean, just in the games, even where he was limited in a few games last year, he still finished 6th in targets per game. Diontae Johnson, that is. I mean, he is an absolute target hog. And a lot of that, I think, came with Big Ben kind of still recovering from the surgery last year. I don't think he was 100%. So getting those really short dump-off throws benefited him at his age. But at the same time, I love me some Chase Claypool. So, these guys are far enough in ADP that you can realistically get both. And I've got a lot of best ball builds and dynasty leagues where I have Diontae Johnson and Chase Claypool. And I love that. It's a little bit of thunder and lightning. You got the floor play with Diontae Johnson. You know that he's going to be getting peppered with targets. And then you've got the Chase Claypool upside where this guy can score from anywhere. He can put up a 3-touchdown game like nothing. They use him as a runner in the ends or at the goal line. He just does so much that Diontae Johnson isn't capable of. So Diontae Johnson, he's kind of stepped into that old AB role where he's just getting a ton of targets and you know what you're getting from him. But there's still that upside that's a little bit unknown with Chase Claypool. And I still really like that. So before we get to these chat questions, I just want to call out that you need to sign up for the Footballguys daily email update if you aren't already. Every day, Joe Bryant, the founder and owner of Footballguys, will bring you all of the latest from Footballguys. So news, transactions, and rumors all around the NFL, all the camp buzz you need. And then on top of that, you'll also get the articles and shows that all of the Footballguys staff has contributed that week. So you can sign up for that on footballguys.com. And, it's something I've been a part of that newsletter since high school. I've been reading that since I was 15 years old. So, I mean, it really is a nice way to start the day. So definitely recommend signing up for that newsletter if you haven't already. Now, we talked about this guy a little bit when I was dropping the Sam Darnold talk earlier. But Mackie Bingham is asking us, what else do we need to see from Terrace Marshall before we put him in that Marvin Jones / Michael Gallup group of wide receiver 3s with big-time fantasy upside? Which one of you wants to take this first? Who wants to talk Terrace Marshall? Troy,
I'll take it.
Do it.
To be honest, we haven't seen anything. Let's be honest. We haven't seen anything. So it's like, we're not going to put him in that group unless he starts doing some crazy stuff in camp. I still want the other guys, right? Like, I believe we have to see him perform. Did he look good in college? Yeah. Is he a sleeper? Absolutely. But I know what Marvin Jones is. I know what Michael Gallup is. So it's hard just to put a rookie who's going to be maybe the 4th option on the team behind Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. So to me, I got to factor that in. So I like Marshall. I love him for Dynasty. And redraft, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit. You got to show me something, Mr. Marshall.
I like it. What do you have to add to this one, Victoria?
I agree. The same thing. We haven't seen anything, though. I am so excited to see what he can do in this offense. Though you're thinking you've got Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, and I mean, I don't want to say this, potentially Dan Arnold ahead of him for targets. I know I have never mentioned him more in my life in this hour-long stretch, but he could be fifth on the target lead. So I don't know if he's really going to be fantasy relevant this year, but I'm excited to see those highlight reels. I'm sure we'll see some of those.
Yeah, I just don't know if this team is going to pass enough. And if he's going to be able to carve out a big enough role, just like you said, I mean, he can realistically be fifth on this team in targets. And I think long term, if you're in a dynasty league, stash Harris Marshall because he's got a ton of upside. Absolutely. He's really the only one that fits like the alpha mold. I mean, you can say Jamar Chase, obviously, but he's a little bit undersized compared to Marshall. Marshall's a guy that kind of fits that like alpha role as far as his build and his size and all that. So, I like Harris Marshall, but I don't know if he's going to be too fantasy relevant this year. Looks like we got a question here. I'm trying to scroll through the chat, but seems like teams are no longer overlooking smaller offensive weapons, but actually seeking them out. Tyler Lockett, Tyreek Hill, copycat scheming. So I don't know if this is so much of a question. Maybe this had to do with something that we were talking about. But let's talk about this for a little bit because this is something that I have noticed lately too. And so many people, are going goo goo gaga over DK Metcalf and all that. And I get it. He's huge and strong and fast, but Tyler Lockett's the one that out-targeted him last year, and he has really carved out a big role for himself. So let's just ask that question. What are some of the other smaller receivers out there in the NFL that you can see being pretty fantasy relevant this year?
Rondale Moore. He's the shortest of them all.
Let's go.
We saw that clip today.
Oh my God. It was so beautiful. It was great.
I don't like his number. He's 85. He definitely should have I don't know. He looks weird in 85. So that's my only gripe. But Rondale Moore. No, it bothers me when I see him. It's disrespectful to him. But Rondale Moore and that offense and that air raid offense, and we just know the type of player he is. He's explosive. He's very powerful. Everybody knows about his like 600-pound squat or whatever. So to me, he's one of those
85-inch Bert.
Exactly. Like he could be playing running back, like that's the type of receiver he is. But yeah, I think there's clearly a reason why the NFL's kind of transitioning to this, right? You obviously have your classic big receiver, but there's a role that's being carved out for these smaller guys. I don't know if it's like a mismatch or because their speed, but it's clearly working, and offenses seem to be wanting that one guy just to, I guess, as a matchup, I don't know what the exact strategy is, but clearly it's working, right? Clearly there's a mismatch between them and the defenders. So I don't know. We're probably going to see more of it.
I like it. Victoria, you got any little guys?
I'm excited to see Devontae Smith, obviously. I mean, he's the tiniest BMI. Let's talk about it all day long. Let's not. But I'm excited to see him. Unfortunately, I hate that he suffered a little bit of an injury early, but at least it was early in camp. They say he'll be ready for the start of the season. So I'm excited to see what he can do with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about the Rams for a quick second because they went out and got not only one, but they got two little guys. I don't know why I can't just stop saying little guys, but Deshaun Jackson and Tutu Atwell. They signed one of them in free agency. They drafted one of them. And I think it's going to be a little wrinkle in this offense that people haven't really caught up to yet. I feel like Jared Goff just severely limited what Sean McVay wanted to do. He didn't have that arm to push the ball down the field. I don't think there's any coincidence that immediately after signing Matt Stafford, they signed Deshaun Jackson and then they signed and then they drafted Tutu Atwell. What we've seen is a pretty conservative offense where it's just getting the ball to Robert Woods in space, handing the ball off to whoever the running back is over there. And that's what we've seen from the Rams for the last couple of years. But now I think that we're going to see this new element where it's going to be Tutu Atwell or Deshaun Jackson. We get like 2 or 3 weeks of Deshaun Jackson before he inevitably gets hurt and Tutu Atwell steps in. But either way, those are two guys that I'm kind of weirdly optimistic about, and I can't help myself from drafting them in like the 18th round of my best ball drafts. We got a question from Jeremy here, and he's saying very simply, do you believe in David Montgomery this year? Do either of you, who wants to take this one first? Do you guys believe in David
The
Montgomery?
Bears homer needs to take it first, and then we
I
can
will
tell you.
gladly take it first. Yeah, I mean, I believe in him where he's getting drafted. At first, everybody was going crazy over David Montgomery last year, and rightfully so. But we all know by now, we've talked about it enough. He was in a situation where Tariq Cohen was injured. So not only was he seeing extra work, but he was seeing extra passing down work. And then we also know that his schedule was absolute cake. I mean, when you look at his last 5 matchups, 4 of those came against bottom 5 defenses that he was able to eat alive. The Bears won all of those games, so they had a positive game script working in his favor. And my fear was that after closing out the year, he was the RB1 down the stretch in fantasy football last year, that everybody was going to say David Montgomery's been unlocked and that he was going to go into 2021 with a top 5 ADP. I'm glad that everybody was able to adjust a little bit and pump the brakes. And where he's getting drafted right now, I mean, he is dropping into the 4th round of drafts. So this is a guy that even if he is going to lose some passing down work to Tariq Cohen, who hasn't even showed up to camp yet. So mind that, he's coming off an ACL tear and he hasn't practiced yet. So, I am a do I think that he's going to finish RB4 again like he did last year? Absolutely not. Do I think that he can outperform his ADP right now where he's going in the 4th round? You betcha. So, yeah, I guess if that's the question, yes, I do believe in David Montgomery. That was tough for me to say because I was one of his bigger haters last year.
So I'm good. So one person that Dave neglected to mention is
Don't
Mr.
even say it.
Damian Williams. Look,
Oh
listen,
my
no, look, y'all go sit down. You go listen to me. All right.
Okay, I'm listening.
Mr. should have been Super Bowl MVP.
I
Damian
knew you were
Williams,
gonna say
right?
that.
Of course. Here's the thing. Look, he's not. People love to hate Damian Williams. And it was like, oh, it's because he's on the Chiefs and because offensive scheme. Of course, that helps. But he proved to be a very good pass catcher and a very reliable back. Like when he was on the field, he dealt with his injuries and all that. But to me, I believe in with David Montgomery. He's still going to be a high end running back too. But Damian Williams is going to eat into his receptions, right? Because even if Tariq Cohen. Yeah, I know he's been banged up, but if he's not there, who's going to be the passing down guy? It's going to be Damian Williams. Damian Williams is he's a great pass catcher. Like we've seen him using that, even with the Dolphins, right? He used to annoy me because when him and Kenyon Drake were the running backs, Damian Williams always got work with Kenyon Drake there, and everybody wanted Kenyon Drake to be the guy, but Damian Williams was always there, throwing it in the side. You know why? Because he does the things that coaches like, right? He does the little things, and I believe that he's going to do those little things for the Bears. So again, David Montgomery is going to be fine. He's going to be a high-end wide receiver too, but Damian Williams is also going to play, he's going to cap his reception totals, in my opinion, just because he's going to be working to the offense. So don't forget Damian Williams, y'all.
One thing I will say, in addition to this Damian Williams talk, is that Damian Williams, when he was in Kansas City, Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator there. So, Damian Williams is a little bit older now, and he might have some rust after taking a year off last season, but he does have some history with Matt Nagy. So, I feel like I try to roll my eyes when Damian Williams gets brought up, but you're right. He does the things the coaches like. He's good in pass protection. He's very sure-handed. He always picks up yards after contact. So, I don't want to believe it, but he might carve out a bigger role than we want him to. Do you have anything to add to David Montgomery? We got one more question that I do want to get to, though. This is a really good one that somebody just dropped.
Let's get to it. Y'all answered that well.
Let's do it. All right. Who are tight ends that you are targeting in the 7th round or later?
Boy.
I don't know if you guys need to pull up some ADP real quickly and take a look here, but I can start this one if you guys don't have an answer ready.
You can
go for it.
There's 2 guys that I really, really like, and I'm almost getting nervous because I can't stop drafting them. And if they don't pan out, I'm going to lose a lot of money this year. But Jonnu Smith and Gerald Everett, I love these guys this year. I'll admit I wasn't too crazy on Jonnu Smith at first, and then my good friend Jeff Bell completely sold me on him, and now I can't get enough of him. First of all, they gave him $50 million, and not only did they give him $50 million, but it's like we got the alert, like free agency's open, and then before you could even blink, it's like the Patriots gave Jonnu Smith $50 million. So that Bill Belichick wanted to bring Jonnu Smith into that team. He's raved about him for years, and I don't think that they're going to have him there and not have him be a big part of the offense. So I see him getting manufacturer's touches. It wouldn't surprise me. They don't really have a goal line back right now. It wouldn't surprise me. We've seen it in Tennessee where he would get goal line touches. I think that he is just going to be a very gadgety guy that Bill Belichick is going to use a lot. And the other guy is Gerald Everett. And Gerald Everett, he struggled to really carve out a role for himself in Los Angeles. I get that behind Tyler Higbee, but now he goes to Seattle, who hasn't really had a good tight end in a long time. But when you look at their tight end numbers over the year, it's been very solid. Russell Wilson likes his tight ends. It's just that Jimmy Graham couldn't stay healthy. Will Dissly couldn't stay healthy. Jacob Hollister couldn't stay healthy. Whoever it was, we haven't seen a tight end there put together a full 16 games in quite some time. So all Gerald Everett has to do is stay healthy. I think that he's already the top dog on that team. And it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being one of those, mid-tier, very serviceable tight end ones that you can get very late in your draft. Troy, I see you looking. You're itching. Who are you talking about here?
Ooh, yeah, I'm itching. I got two guys too, and you already mentioned one of them, Tyler Higbee. Now, before everybody,
why are you gonna take my answer?
Before everybody turns off the pod and listen, stops watching the stream, hear me out. Tyler Higbee broke a lot of hearts. I remember I tweeted, a couple weeks ago that Tyler Higbee is like that toxic boyfriend that broke your heart, right? But I said that it's time to forgive him now. It's time to forgive him. You know why? Just like Dave mentioned, Gerald Everett's out of town. You have Matthew Stafford in town, so you got a significant QB upgrade, and you have less competition in terms of tight end targets. Yes, I know I like to run 3 wide receiver sets, but to me, at least from what I've seen, is that Matt Stafford, he seemed to enjoy targeting his tight ends. It wasn't a high volume of it, but he did target his tight ends. And, when he was with Detroit, obviously it's a different offense. But to me, Tyler Higbee is the beneficiary of, again, quarterback upgrade and Gerald Everett not being there. He's the big fish in town. Obviously, he's going to be on the field a lot because, yes, he's going to be on the field blocking, but at the same time, he's always going to be on the field because he's an excellent blocker. So that also means that there might be times where he's going to get opportunities to get targets. So I like Tyler Higbee this year, as well as I like Adam Troutman. It's hard not to like Adam Troutman because you know why? Who's the Saints starting wide receiver? I have absolutely no idea. Who's the wide receiver one?
Diontae Harris, obviously. God,
Marcus Callaway.
That's a question right there that somebody should have been asking. Who's going to be catching passes in New Orleans?
I heard something about maybe Ty Montgomery's going to be wide receiver again. Who knows?
Oh my God, I can't deal with it again. No,
it's a mess. It's a complete mess, right? So Troutman, by default, he's going to be, I believe he's going to be very involved in the offense. And when he was drafted, the Saints traded up. They trade away draft picks and they moved up in the draft in order to get Troutman. And it's for a reason because he's very talented. And again, there's no Jared Cook this year. Troutman. Those are my two guys.
Troutman, didn't he have like a 38% dominator rating or something insane in college as well? I love that stat. Those are my two, so cool. And we can just end the show, I guess. I'm just kidding.
You're cheating on my notes.
No,
we got about a minute left. If you got somebody else you want to plug, Victoria.
No, I love if Ertz leaves. I love Dallas Goedert, but he's of course on the higher end of the tight end scale. But yeah, I love all those answers, guys.
All right. Well, hopefully we answer the questions that you need. I can't even try to say that name. Is it Jala Galbo? I think I got that right. Jello Galbo. Thank you for asking a good question to wrap up the show here. Want to appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight and remind you once again that if you are into shows like this, we know that you're a serious fantasy player. So you need to get yourself a Footballguys premium membership, whether it's redraft, dynasty, or DFS. Not only are we going to have you covered on this show, but we're also going to have you covered on our website as well. So go to footballguys.com, click on the orange button in the top right corner to sign up so we can do the work and you can do the winning. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Football Guys Mailbag Show with Dave, Troy, and Victoria. You can find us live every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguystv, where you can find all the rest of the Football Guys Show and send all of your questions into mailbag at footballguys.com so we can get those answered for you. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.